Welcome to the Red and Gold Report in a special episode where I'm going to be previewing the upcoming NFL draft for our Kansas City Chiefs. It is just days away. Yes, the draft is just days away, and we got to start with the draft picks that the Chiefs currently own. Now, the Chiefs have been collecting draft picks like a Pokemon card obsessed kid on the playground, and now the whole binder is full. The Chiefs are the current owners of 12 shiny draft selections, and they have two picks in each of the first 4 rounds of the draft, and then 4 picks in the 7th round, which means that this draft is a huge historical opportunity for our team. The Chiefs still own their own picks in the first, second, third, and fourth rounds, where in each of those rounds, they're going to be 30th in line. But then they have an additional pick in every one of those rounds. Yes, how did they pull that off? Well, glad you asked. This draft is going to be amazing with all of these extra picks. So Kansas City, well, they own an extra pick in the first round, the 29th pick overall, thanks to shipping Tyreek Hill to Miami. Kansas City then owns an extra second round pick, the 18th in the second round, also because of that trade of Tyreek Hill to Miami. The Chiefs then also own an extra pick, the 39th in the third round. That's a compensatory pick due to the league's minority hiring award system when Ryan Poles was scooped out of the Chiefs front office to head to Chicago as the next general manager up there. And then they own an extra pick in the middle of the fourth round, also thanks to the trade of Tyreek Hill. Now, the Chiefs are without actually a pick in the 5th round, as they traded away in that big trade that happened last year for left tackle Orlando Brown. And then they're without a pick in the 6th round because they traded for defensive end edge rusher Melvin Ingram midway through last season with Pittsburgh. But then they have four different picks in the 7th round because, well, why not? So those are the picks that they own right now, and I'm saying it that way on purpose. They own them right now, and I'm saying it that way because there's no way they're going to be picking 12 different players. I think what they're going to do is they're going to package those picks to jump up in those first couple rounds. And now, what might that look like? Well, according to the trade chart, the team could do something like this. They could package together the 30th pick and the 62nd pick, so a late first rounder and a late second rounder, to jump up to about 18th in the first round. There's a million trade opportunities that could come up like this depending on how the draft board falls. And hey, real quick, I make weekly news and insight videos on our Chiefs, and only on our Chiefs every single week. If you want to see these, make sure to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, hit that notification bell, and particularly be looking for my draft recaps just days away. Okay, next, let's talk about needs. We talked about the picks. Now let's talk about needs. What do the Chiefs need? Well, the Chiefs' biggest need is unquestionably, in my mind, defensive end. There are currently no defensive ends on the Chiefs roster who had more than 4.5 sacks or a grade of above 62 last year, which actually means that the Chiefs still need to add 2 starters at the position. So in my view, defensive end is the number one, by far biggest need on draft day for the team. Our second area of need is corner. In today's NFL, you start 3 corners. And while Jarius Sneed and Rashad Fenton are fine as 2 of those starters, there's no way we can go into this next season with DeAndre Baker playing the role of that 3rd starter. Then I would say after defensive end and after corner, the 3rd need is wide receiver. There are currently some really talented players at wide receiver on the Chiefs roster. But the current top 4 receivers on the roster are Juju Smith-Schuster, Mecole Hardman, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and Josh Gordon. Those are the top 4. While each is exceptionally physically talented, only one of them, Juju, has ever shown that he could be a number 1 wide receiver. And even he hasn't done that in some time now. And only one of them, MVS, is signed for more than just 1 year. So it is really a perfect year to bring in a wide receiver in the draft that you could develop this year and maybe be your number 1 next year. In the next tier of needs, I'd put defensive tackle and offensive right tackle. I think it would be good to bring in competition for Derek Nottie at that defensive tackle spot and competition for Lucas Niang at right tackle. After that, the needs aren't really for starters or even to compete for a starter spot, but just depth. And at those depth spots, you'd be looking at drafting maybe a linebacker, corner, or a safety. So all around, there's a lot of needs still left on this team, but primarily on the defensive side of the ball. So, with those needs in mind, next, of course, is this question: who do you actually take, right? Like, this is the fun of all the mock drafts that we look at and all that. But here's the great news about this draft for the Chiefs. I think edge rusher is the deepest position in this draft. And that's exactly what we need. No matter how the draft falls, there will be a defensive end worth taking at the end of the first round. And if the Chiefs want to trade up into the middle of the first round, there's a chance that they could grab a player who really is a top 10 talent, but drop to maybe 15th or 18th just because this position is so deep this year. So I see there being 3 tiers of first round caliber defensive ends in this draft. There's the top tier that's going to be gone in the top 10 of the draft. That's Michigan's Hutchinson, Oregon's Thibodeau, and Georgia's Trayvon Walker. Those 3 should be long gone before the middle of the first round. So even if we were to trade up, there's probably no possibility of getting those 3. That's the first tier. Now, where things get interesting is the second tier of defensive end. That starts with one of my favorite players in the draft, George Karlaftis. George Karlaftis out of Purdue. Karlaftis has a lot of power. He has a relentless motor, which I think is absolutely key to pass rush. How hard are you going to be trying at this thing? Remember the motor Jared Allen had on him? Remember Jared Allen? Yeah. At least as a college player, that's Karlaftis. He's kind of on that level of effort as far as college, right? He's no Jared Allen, but as far as college effort, right? Now he doesn't have the burst or length or flexibility Allen had, but when you turn on the tape, you see he is a bit thicker than Allen was. I would love if the Chiefs traded up into the 18th, the 20th spot to hope that he would drop to them. And I actually like him more on tape than Trayvon Walker. Yeah, everyone has him in the top 5. Some people are talking about Walker out of Georgia as the top player in the entire draft. Oh my goodness. Turn on the tape. Turn on the tape. So I really like the Purdue defensive end coming out this year. In the same second tier, we also have Jermaine Johnson from Florida State. He is the prototypical size that everybody loves at 6 feet, 5 inches, 260 pounds. It's like how you drop a defensive end. He also has the length, explosion, speed, athleticism, agility that you look for in an end. And even though his pass rush skills are really a work in progress, and even though he's inconsistent, he totaled 12 sacks last year. So a lot of production. But like Karlaftis, I think that it's going to take a real trade up into that 15 to 20 range, maybe even before that, to even hope to get Johnson. Then things get very interesting in the third tier of defensive ends. Guys that probably the Chiefs aren't going to have to trade up to get. That these guys are probably going to drop to them at those 2 late first round picks. One of these or all of these are going to be available with those picks. Okay, so you've got Penn State's Arnold Abikati. I'm going to butcher that name the rest of my life, right? The Penn State guy. You got Michigan's David Ojobo. You got USC's Drake Jackson. And you got Minnesota's Boye Mafe. And all of these are actually very similar players. They're all really undersized players who turn it on mainly just during their last year of college ball, but have a lot to offer for pass rusher. But I actually like a different player better than each of those. And that's Oklahoma's Nick Bonito. Yeah, Bonito. Yeah, he's undersized. He's not getting national attention. You're not going to see him in mock drafts in the first round. But when I turn on the tape, he's just plain better. He's a better pass rusher. He's more explosive, and he's done it for longer with more production than those other 4. But the bigger point is this. The team has a massive need at defensive end, and somebody's going to be there at the end of the first round that is going to be worth taking. So that's really good news for us Chiefs fans. Let's move on to cornerback. It's a little bit of a different situation at corner. You have LSU's Derek Stingley, and you have Cincinnati's Ahmed Sauce Gardner, and those are the two corners that are going to be taken probably in the top 10. They're going to be way gone by the time we could get them. Now, some pundits have Clemson's Andrew Booth going in the first round, but I kind of see him more as a second rounder. Same thing from Kyer Elam from Florida. Other pundits have pointed to Jalen Petrie from Baylor or Daxton Hill from Michigan, but I see those two guys more as safeties in the NFL. So the player I'm actually excited about that the Chiefs could get at corner is Trent McDuffie from Washington. This is a football player. He has been consistently excellent, not just over 1 year, but over the past 3 years in man coverage. He's only 5'11", but he plays bigger than his size. He's fast. He's aggressive. He plays quick, naturally, smooth in coverage. He is awesome. He's tenacious. He's a good tackler. And the only reason he might drop is because he is under 6 feet, and because those other two guys are being graded better than him, but I really like him. Now, the Chiefs might have to package some picks to trade up into the middle of the first round to give them any possibility of getting him, but I like the guy out of Washington. So let's move on to wide receiver. Wide receiver is an interesting situation for the Chiefs in the first round because they're picking right now late in the first round with both of those first round picks. Now, I keep seeing mock drafts giving Kansas City wide receiver, but this is the problem. There are 4 wide receivers that I have definitive first round grades for. Jameson Williams from Alabama, Garrett Wilson from OSU, Drake London from USC, and Chris Olave from OSU. 4 guys, right? Problem is that each of them might be gone in the first half of the first round, so it's going to be very difficult unless you're going to package a ton of picks to jump up and get one of those 4 guys. Now, I also like Arkansas's Treylon Burks. I loved him on film, but he ran a really slow 40, and it's kind of hard to see somebody running that slow being like a true number 1 wide receiver. And then do you take a guy you don't think is going to be a number 1 in the first round? I'm not sure, but outside of Burks, I keep seeing players like Georgia's George Pickens and North Dakota State's Christian Watson going to the Chiefs in the first round. And you know what? I just don't see those 2 guys as first rounders. So it might be a situation where if they want a receiver, they're either going to have to give up a king's ransom to trade a bunch of picks into the first half of the first round, or just wait and see who's available by the middle of the second round. So with all of that in mind, here are the 2 insights that I want to share with you, kind of 2 interesting insights that I want to share with you about this draft. The first is that I believe that this upcoming draft will be a career-defining moment for Chiefs general manager Brett Veach. I know everybody would say, well, of course, every draft is career-defining for a general manager. Oh no, this one is even more so. It's going to be huge for the legacy of Veach. Specifically because, fun fact, did you know that he's actually only ever drafted 1 player in the first round during his 4 years as general manager? Let me explain. Brett Veach became general manager of the Chiefs in July of 2017, so just months after the team drafted Mahomes. So he wasn't doing that draft as general manager, right? Then in 2018, Veach was without a pick due to the team trading up the previous year to nab Mahomes. In 2019, Veach traded away their first rounder for defensive end Frank Clark. Yeah, that didn't go very well, but he didn't actually end up picking then in the first round 2019. In 2020, Veach used a late first rounder to draft running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire, which just been okay, which is definitely not what you want when you take a running back in the first round, okay? And then in 2021, he traded away the Chiefs' first rounder for offensive tackle Orlando Brown, which was great because Brown played well last season. But the point is this, that in his 4 years as general manager, well, Brett Veach has actually only used 1 pick on a first rounder, which is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Now, it's interesting because it means that in many ways, this draft is going to be a career-defining moment for Brett Veach. Right now, he has 2 first round picks. And so he might be using more first round picks this year than he has cumulatively over the previous 4 years as general manager. Now, if he hits on both of those 2 picks, that means he's going to establish an excellent track record on drafting in the first round, right? But if you miss on both, and then you add the thus far disappointing output of Clyde Edwards Hilaire, well, the narrative could become different because now you're looking at 3 picks that didn't work. So here's hoping. I like Veach. He's made a lot of other brilliant moves outside of the first round of the draft. There's a reason that the Chiefs are so good, right? So here's hoping that the Chiefs nail this draft, particularly that they hit on 2 first round draft picks. They nail them out of the park. And really, that's the first insight that I kind of want to share with you that I think is interesting and unique about this draft for the Chiefs. It's going to be a career defining moment for general manager Brett Veach. The second interesting insight is this. I think that one of the interesting things about this particular draft for the entire NFL this year is just how split the league is on this draft. The top 10 on different teams' draft boards are going to be remarkably different. And that isn't always the case. I mean, there are past years where it's like, yeah, the top 3 at many positions, a lot of teams kind of has some group think and share how they're ranking those players. But I think that nearly no teams this year would rank the top quarterbacks or wide receivers or pass rushers the same, or probably even the offensive tackles. Now, why does this matter that so many draft boards are going to be so different? Well, expect to see a bunch of trades. When there are large variants in the grades across the league, that means that for several teams, a player that they had going in the top 10 or 15 is going to drop into the late first round, maybe even the second round. So they're going to be just clamoring to trade back up and draft those guys. It also means that maybe a team had a second round grade on a guy, and now, well, he's available in the fourth or fifth. They're going to be trading picks to get him. There's going to be a lot of trades in this draft. Now, why is that a unique situation specifically for the Chiefs? Well, because in drafts where there's going to be a lot of trades, because there's a lot of variance in grades, the teams with more picks win the trades, right? And the Chiefs have 12 picks. This is really going to play into their hands because they have so much different equity basically in the draft to use to trade to get up or to trade to take advantage of another team trying to trade to get up. I could absolutely see a scenario where the Chiefs package together a first and second rounder or more to trade up into the middle of the first round and grab a great player because somebody that they have in the top 10 is going to slip to 15 to 20. Is just going to happen. So if there's anything to get ready for this year, it is a bunch of trades, and the Chiefs are in a great position because they've got 12 different draft picks to trade away, right? And to figure out how they can jump up in the draft. But what do you think? How would you rank the Chiefs' needs going into this draft? Who do you think that they should take? And how many draft week trades are you thinking they're going to make? Leave me your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Be on the lookout for draft coverage I'm going to be bringing right here on YouTube soon. And go Chiefs!